Hi guys, this is Hai Kumar Kortuwada. In this video, we will learn what are the problems when we use a new keyword for a service. Actually speaking, till now we have injected our services by using inject method and constructor, and also we have discussed about injecting one service into another service. But if you remember, a service is also a type of class. That means we can create a new keyword for our services. So if we create the new keyword, what are the problems which we come up, and when to create a new keyword in Angular? So we'll discuss about that. So let me quickly jump into Visual Studio Code. So for that sake, I'm using our component communication logic, which we have implemented in my previous videos. So please watch that for better understanding. I'll provide the link in the description. So let me go to the browser and explain you what we have implemented. So we have two routings. One is sender routing and the receiver routing. Let me go into app routing, and you can see here we have a sender and the sender component and the receiver component. So now whenever I send some data from the sender component, it will be received in the receiver component and it will be shown. So let me go here and let me type something like Techshareskk and hit here. So you are able to see that Techshareskk, and whatever I am typing from the sender, it will be going and showcasing that value. If I reload this, the scope of the service will be in a dead state and it will be creating a new instance for us. So that's why you are able to see this default value. And this one we did in two ways. One is by using our inject method inside the sender component, and we have used a constructor for injecting a service in receiver component. So let me go into the sender component. Here if you see, we have the sender service by using inject method. And if you go into receiver component, the injection process I did using a constructor. But for example, if we create a new keyword for this service, what happens? So let me go into the sender and just replace your inject methodology with this send receive service. So let me use something like new send receive service and save this. Now in the same way, go to the receiver component and don't inject into this. Instead, what I'll do is I'll just create a new keyword for this, something like this, and is equal to new send receive service, something like this. So I'm not doing anything. Instead of injecting them, I'm creating a new keyword. Why I'm creating a new keyword? Let's go here to the sender receive service. Actually speaking, if you are coming from the background of TypeScript or OOPS concepts, whenever you want to create an instance or create an object for a class, you can use a new keyword. Here it's a class. Just don't bother about this injectable decorator, but this is a normal class. So whenever we are using this normal class, I can create a new keyword. So whenever I create a new keyword, it will create an instance for us, and by using that instance, we can call the data. But what exactly and how exactly this behaves? So let me go here and let me reload once and enter Techshareskk and click on this send data. But you are able to see default value. Why? Because here that data exchange is not happening. Let me explain you in a simpler way. For example, this is only dependent on the process of injecting. The injection process is not happening here. So let me go into our sender component and receiver component. I don't want any other stuff. So whenever I'm in the sender component, so we are creating an instance. That means it is creating a particular instance for us. That means a storage space for us. Let me name it as Sai. So I have Sai space. And now whenever I navigate to the receiver component, again we are calling the new keyword. So at this time, it will not take the storage from Sai. Instead, it will create a new storage. Let me name it as Kumar. So this will be a new storage, and the new storage will also have the default values whatever that service have, but not the values which were set by sender component, because sender component service is stored at Sai, receiver component service is stored at Kumar. So they will not have any common space to exchange their information. So that's why these two are independent storage or independent services, and that can be used only within that component. If you want to exchange that data, you cannot do that. This is the problem number one whenever you are using a new keyword. and the instances are created multiple times. For example, if I am having 5 components and you are keeping these 5 components with a new keyword, then you are creating 5 instances for that particular service. So this is second point where multiple instances will be created whenever you are using a new keyword. Let's talk about the third point. For example, as we discussed in my previous video, you can inject one service into another service. For example, let me go into sender service, and sender service requires one more service, internal service. Let me use something like private router, and I require a router service inside this particular service. Then if you see in the receiver component, it expects that parameter to be passed. So if you go into our sender component also, it expects that parameter to be passed over there. So this is one of the biggest problem. Why? Because we may be having not only one dependent service into another service. We may be having n number of service. Here we are using router, we may use user service, we may use product service. Like that, we may be utilizing different number of services in one service. So you have to pass all the dependencies from our receiver component. This is problem number 3. So if you have 5 dependencies for that service, you have to inject all that 5 dependencies in your current component and should pass here. For example, how you can do that? Let me use something like private router and the router over here, and I need to pass this dot router service to this. So if you are creating an instance, you have to pass all the dependencies for them. But actually speaking, this router is not doing anything over this component, but just to pass it as a dependency, I am creating this sender receive service with this particular parameter. So this is something like we are creating our dependency injection and passing manually all these dependency values. But if you are injecting a service, then all the dependencies for that particular service will be handled by Angular. That will be creating only one object for a particular module. So that's why these services are called as singleton services in Angular. And also, third problem whatever we have discussed is we need to pass all the dependencies manually. And for solving this, we can use again an inject method. So you can use this private out of the constructor, and then you can use something like inject router, so that it reduces the dependencies and there is no need to pass the dependencies. That is also one of the advantage of using inject method. But if you see Angular 10 or Angular 11, you don't have inject method over there. We didn't have that much feasibility to use inject method. So at that situations, the only way to inject the services is by using constructor. If you are using a constructor with lot of dependencies, creating a new keyword is not recommended. So these are the problems which we may be facing whenever we are using a new keyword. So that's why please do not create any new keywords. Instead, you can use a constructor or you can use inject method. So some people may be asking how these services can reset if we are not creating a new keyword. I'll discuss about them in my upcoming videos, how exactly we can use these services at a module level, at a component level, and throughout the application. If you see, this is something which we saw throughout the application, but in my next video, I'll explain you how exactly you can use that service at a particular module, not throughout the application. So that's we'll discuss in the upcoming videos. So that's about your problems with new keyword. Hope you like my explanation. If you like my video, like, share, subscribe to my channel for more updates. Signing off. Thank you.